Hello, and welcome to Uncluttered, a podcast that discusses the connection between faith and organizing. Our focus is not just how to be organized, but why it's important from a biblical standpoint that we leave the chaos and clutter in our lives behind. Hi, I'm Leanna George, an author and former professional organizer living in Houston, Texas.
And certified professional organizer living in East Tennessee. Are you ready to unclutter your heart and home so you can focus on what matters most? Let's dive in.
All right, well, we are back for part two of organizing your kids' work and play. It was such a big episode that we had to break it up into two parts. And so we're glad that you came back for the second part because I think you're still going to get a lot of great information. Well, I know you are. So you are going to get some great information. So thanks for bearing with us and coming back for more. So like we said in our last episode, we're focused on, which was focused mainly on kids' play, namely toys. This week it was going to be about kids' work and their schoolwork, their artwork, all that wonderful stuff they bring home. But before we get into that, I want to start with our biblical inspiration, which was the same for both of these episodes. And it's Proverbs 22:6, which says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So it's important to remember with all this organizing that what you're doing is training your child to be organized too. It's not just about getting things in order, but about teaching those important skills. So, like I said, today we're talking about schoolwork. So it's called Corralling Our Kids' Work. And Angie, are you ready to start round two?
Absolutely, I am.
All
All
right.
right. But before we dive into the nitty gritty details of this, I want to share a quote from one of our favorite organizers, Peter Walsh. He says, "The first question to ask is, who are you keeping the schoolwork for, you or your children? If it's for your children, get them involved in the decision making. If it's for you, still get them involved, as
Mm-hmm.
chances are you might think everything is genius quality and should be saved. Kids are usually far more practical."
Oh, they are. They are. They are. And that is such a helpful and true quote. It's
Mhm.
just it's great. And we talked about this in the last episode about the doing this process with your kids. We know as moms that you can get so much more done without them. We know that. But for this stuff, it's really theirs. And so we need to be
Yeah,
asking because otherwise we would hold on to every piece of paper that they bring home from school. And it's just not possible to do that.
right.
I mean, how many handprint, pictures and, whether it's a Christmas tree, a turkey, a flower, I mean, you name it, right? We've got handprint designs for everything. And how many of those do we really need?
Yep, absolutely. They're so cute though. The handprint things
They
are cute,
are. They
but
really are.
we
We can't, I
can't
mean, you
keep
love
them all. Yeah.
no.
Which reminds me actually of a former client whose sons are adults now, and she told me while we were organizing that she had kept every single piece of paper that her boys had ever written on.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes it's that still stresses me out, even though I haven't worked with her in years. I just wonder, is it all still there?
Well,
Maybe
and
she'll
I just
listen to this episode and she'll do something about it.
hopefully, yes, but I'm just thinking, where do you store that much
I know.
paper?
I
And
know.
then, I
Yeah.
mean, goodness gracious, if a fire happened in her house,
Oh,
she's
yeah,
done
it's a
for.
powder keg waiting to.
Yes,
Yeah, and then,
exactly.
with the schoolwork and the artwork and stuff, I've got a friend who, is starting some decluttering, and, she said she and her husband have 4 grown daughters,
Mm,
and she told me they had a process, and we're gonna be talking about setting up a process and a system and all that, but their process led to for each girl, they got 1 box for each school year.
mhm,
Which
mhm.
sounds great as you're going through things, but then you think about, okay, well, then when all was said and done, they're grown. That's 4 kids times 12 school years, 48 boxes just of schoolwork and artwork. So, you
Mhm.
know, there
Uh,
it's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's why people don't park their cars in the garage anymore because they gotta keep
Yeah.
all this stuff.
That's true.
I don't know where else you're keeping it, honestly, if you want to live in your house. But yes,
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot. And
it
when
really is.
my girls have one box for all 12 years.
Yep.
And
Mine too.
they were just practical. They're like, I don't want this, I don't want this.
Mhm.
I mean, they
Yeah.
saved a few favorite books, and honestly, the rest of it, they just were like, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's funny.
that's a thing. We think we're keeping it for them. They're gonna love it. In the end, they're just like, throw it away, mom. Why did you keep all of this?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
avoid that. Let's avoid that trauma, because
Mhm.
it is traumatic when you've spent 12 years saving up for your kids' stuff and they tell you, why did you do all that? I don't want any of this.
Yeah.
So let's avoid that trauma, and let's help our listeners today to handle it better so they won't have that situation.
Yes, for sure. So we're going to help you not do what we just talked about, and you're going to have better tools and better tips, and you're going to be prepared. So,
Yes.
as you know, some of you know, when your kids are in school, they bring home a ton of stuff between the schoolwork and the artwork, and some of it is keepsake worthy for sure. I mean, some of it we really do. We'll be glad at some point when that we kept it, but most of it isn't. But figuring out the difference between the two is not very easy. And so sometimes with things like that, if we're not sure, we'll just say, well, we'll just keep it all. And then
Mhm.
it clutters up our home. So, there's two main points here where we talk about corralling your kids' work. And one is like knowing what to keep and then knowing the best way to process it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's start talking about how to decide what to keep and what not to keep, since this is such a struggle. So here are some tips for that. Keep anything that is truly unique to your child and a true reflection of who they are. If something looks like a piece of work that anybody could have done, it's probably not that much of a keepsake. And a lot of it is going to be that type of thing. So it
Mhm.
needs to be truly unique. And I learned this one the hard way. Don't keep any work that contains food products. Now that you
Yes.
may be going like, what? What would you have with food products on it? Well, there's all kinds of arts and crafts that kids make with like Cheerios or goldfish or
Pasta.
macaroni or something like
Yeah.
that. And those things will not only crumble and fall apart, but they can attract unwanted pests, and nobody wants that.
Yep.
So keep only what you have space for. I mean, that is huge. We've talked on this episode about the container concept, about saying, like, here's how much space I'm willing to give up for that. And then you decide, okay, well, that's the space I have. And so that's all, I only want to keep what fits. And then this is a great one. Keep a sampling of similar items. So Leanna was mentioning the handprint art pieces, and those are really cute, but they produce them all through. So maybe if you said, I want to keep one, when they're really infant, and then keep one a little bit older, maybe just have a few of them over different parts of their life, then that might be a good strategy. And you can do that for a lot of different types of work.
Yeah. And know that that's probably going to end around fifth grade.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, if you have a senior
Middle
that's still
schooler.
making,
Here, honey, put your hand down. Oh,
if
please.
you
Yeah.
have a senior in high school that you can get a handprint, good luck. And yes, hold on to it.
Yeah. Unless they're like being printed for, hopefully not
Yeah.
for doing something wrong.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't want those kind of fingerprints.
Oh,
But
we don't.
yeah, I mean, you're not going to have them for all the school year. So
Yeah.
keep a sampling. You don't need them all the year. So those are really great tips, Angie. And I think that if people can just simply just start applying those little things, you'll see a huge difference
Mhm.
in the amount of paperwork you have. But
Yep.
here are a few other things that people might want to keep in mind when decluttering. Like I said just a minute ago, the younger years will have the heaviest flow of paperwork.
Mhm.
So choose wisely during this time. I mean, if you can get your middle school or high schooler to show you their papers, that's a miracle in itself. And
Yeah.
then, yes, hold on to it. But that's, the odds are that's not going to happen. Comb through the work on your own first, and then have your child make the final decision about what goes or
Mhm.
stays. And like we said earlier, if you can get them to do it with you, but we all know kids' attention span is, fleeting. So it's probably best if you do it first and then have them go with you. Um, don't be afraid to set limits. Okay. Whether we believe it or not, kids like boundaries. They do. Um, and so, just as we said with toys, let your child know how many pieces they can keep and then let them decide. Okay. I mean, we know that in pre K, they're going to have so many pieces of paper,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of paper, right? And then, just say, we have this box once this box is full, it's full. So,
Mhm.
and let them decide. And it's not just for the sake of decluttering, it's just a skill that you're teaching them anyway, right?
Yeah.
People need to know how to make decisions and make choices. And so it's good that you can start from an early age. And then if your child is having trouble, and there will be some cases in which they do, then consider an alternative way to capture the work. Okay. We all know about science projects and their 3 trifold boards, right? Those
Mhm.
can be really hard to store. So take a picture, take a picture of your child with that, and maybe some of their, explanation of their science experiment, and keep that and let the board go. Or, you could maybe cut a scrap of something, if it's
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a blanket, but a blanket isn't schoolwork, but, let them keep a scrap of something of it, and then, just let the rest of that go. So,
Yeah.
or just any of that bigger stuff, that the solar system, right? The solar system is a very popular thing, or those shoebox,
Dioramas. I love those things.
yeah, maybe you just take a few pieces out of the diorama,
Mhm.
store those, and then let the shoebox go. So
Yes.
those are
Some of
just
that
a
stuff,
Mhm.
yeah, some of that stuff takes up a lot of space. I remember I kept for the longest time, my daughter in her AP biology class had done this big, huge human body sketch thing. It had all these different layers of
Mm.
transparencies and stuff. It was really, really cool, but took up a lot of space. I remember, like, as a kid, my leaf collection, my bug collection.
Oh, my bug
Uh,
collection, yeah.
I loved those. I did my cousin's an audiologist, and she helped me for a science fair project do like a model of the human ear. So those kinds of things, very cool, lots of work, but you
Mhm.
can't keep all those because they take up a lot of space.
They
So
do. They really
yeah.
do.
So once
Unless
you've
you
got a
wanna use
handle,
them as living room decor,
yeah. Oh, well, I
that's
mean, yeah, for a while, maybe you
it
can get away from.
it is definitely a talking point.
Yeah.
"Why do you have this ear in your living room?" But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's hilarious. I wish I had a picture of that ear. But anyway, I
yeah,
digress.
yeah, we
So
digress.
so now that we've talked about getting a handle on what you're keeping, now you've got to figure out a step to ensure that the piles don't return, and that is figuring out a process for how you're going to handle the work as it comes in.
Yeah.
And those processes are key.
Yes, they are. And don't be afraid when we say the word process. We're just talking about a system for storing, basically, but it is really a process, because you'll have to take multi steps. And
Yeah.
Angie is the queen of processing,
Oh gosh, I
especially
love this.
paperwork. Yeah, she loves that. So, Angie, I'm going to let you lead the way on this. So, you go
Okay.
for it.
So there's kind of like two approaches for like the win of the processing. And it's kind of the same with a lot of organizing and decluttering. So you could think of it as I'm going to process it as it comes in, like daily or weekly or something like that. So, it's a very frequent thing.
Mhm.
Um, and on some of the, especially like the papers from school that let you know about upcoming events or permission slips or, those things you got to keep on top of. But when it comes to like the artwork that you're trying to decide what to save, you don't have to do it quite as quickly. So,
Right.
but that's one approach. Deal with it as it comes in, daily, weekly, or some kind of schedule like that. Or you could try this. You could say, okay, I'm just going to throw this in a bin, and then at a designated time, maybe like Christmas break and summer, 2 times a year, then do a big decluttering and sorting. I actually had a client not long ago with 5 kids, I think, and she had this was the process that she used. She had one large clear bin for each kid, and they would drop things in as they got them. And then knowing that they weren't keeping all of that, but then at Christmas break and during the summer, she would go spend time with each kid going through each of those, and then they would just whittle it down, and it really worked well for her. So having that process, figuring out what your process is going to help. And then once you figure out that process, like the how often, then you've got to figure out, okay, what is my system? Where's this stuff going to go? What in what type of containers or whatever. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And I just want to say for that client that, dumped it all into a bin.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing is if you are missing a permission slip, at least you're not running around the house looking for it. It's in that container. I mean, that's an added bonus to that.
Yeah.
So, but when you use that system, though, like Angie said, the permission slips, the things that need to be signed, those can't go in there. You have to pull those out first.
Yeah, you got to act on those like right away.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so let's talk about, you've got this system. What are you going to do, right? How are you going to store it? And I love this quote: when we keep everything, what is really important gets lost in the sea of unimportant. So you do need to have a system in place to manage that paperwork. And, are you going to store them in containers or binders or a cute wall hanging folder? I mean, if you looked on Pinterest, you will find tons of ideas. There's no limit to what you could do. It's just a matter of what works for you and what works best for your style, your, organizing style. Some people don't have a problem with just throwing it into a bin and leaving it there. Some people want the cute binders where you have a binder for every grade or a container for every grade. We don't highly suggest that, but because that's, again, can be a lot of boxes, 4 kids, 12 boxes. You got 48 boxes you're with. So, look around and see what other people are doing. Try something, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, then try something else. That's the beauty of this. It's a trial and error. But whatever system you decide, like I said, make it work for you and your family. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's going to work. And if it's too complicated or time consuming to execute, you will not use it and you'll be back where you started. I mean, if it's too complicated, I don't do it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our nature. We tend to just back off from that. So it just needs to have a home that you can easily access on a regular basis. And so, like I said, just browse Pinterest and see what might work for you.
Yep. All right. So listeners, we have thrown a lot at you today between this episode and then the last. So thanks for hanging in there with us through these 2 episodes. And as a thanks, we have a resource that we are giving you, and it is a PDF of Liana's ebook called Corralling Kids Work. It's a really, really good resource that's going to walk you through these steps that we've discussed so you can have it as a handy reference. So all you have to do to grab that informative little book is so you can use it for yourself and share with a friend. Go to our website, which is uncluttered.faith. You click on the podcast tab and then click on this episode. You will find the link to it in our show notes. So easy to get and free for you as our listeners.
And it's perfect for this time of year because we all know it's the end of the school year. What better time than now to start sorting through or deciding on the kind of system you want to use for next year? Because believe it or not, in 2 to 3 months, it's going to be time to start kicking that off again. And so we want you to be organized and prepared for what's to come and then what just finished as well. So let's do a quick wrap up of this episode. We discussed how to corral all the schoolwork and artwork that our kids bring home and the issues associated with that, including the large amount that comes in every day, how to determine what to keep and what not to keep, and processing the things you do keep in the systems you handle to handle it all. And then finally, remember, and this is so important because this is what we're about. I mean, the tips are great. The the practical side of organizing is always helpful, but our focus here is on the connection between faith and organizing. And it is our job as parents to train a child according to their bent and guide them in the right direction, including being organized. And what better way to do it than with the things that they are basically their stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and, as parents, we want it to be a quick process. We want it to be, one and done, but it may take you a long time. So be patient, pray a lot, and
Mhm.
know that you will get there and that you will have given your child one of the best gifts you could give
Oh,
them.
that is so true. So true. Being able to declutter and organize is a skill that you will use your entire life. So start them out early, 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 and you'll be glad you did. So we are so glad you joined us. We'd love for you to share this episode with friends who are going through similar things. Um, we just want to get this message out about the connection between faith and organizing and making space for what matters most to as many people as possible. So sharing with other people is the number one way that people find out about a podcast. So we'd love for you to share.
Yeah.
Also, I want to give you a quick heads up about our next episode, season 3, episode 11. If you're watching in real time, this is May of 2024. So our June 11, it'll be a Tuesday. Normally we release every other Wednesday, but
Mhm.
on Tuesday, June 11th, that episode, the big reveal, we have a huge announcement that we're making on that episode. So you do
Mhm.
not want to miss that one.
That's right. And before we go, don't forget to grab your free gift of the Corralling
Mhm.
Kids Work ebook on our website, uncluttered.faith. And then while you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter, which will give you some free decluttering signs, which can be helpful for this process. And then you can check out our insightful blog posts and follow us on social media as well. So until next time, remember, an uncluttered life is an abundant life.